But we're back for the Brickyard Vintage Invitational post-race. Aram, if you'd send the party invites to Johnny and Cold, Twindy.
I can only suggest players.
Alright, I'll do that. Let me see. All right, we're back on the air. Yeah, we were saying on the broadcast there quite a bit that it was quite obvious that the difference in the field was there are some people that just did not factor in the fact that they were on rock hard vintage tires, and they'd go in that corner and that dirty air would hit them, and it would be damn near impossible for them to hang on to it. And you saw a certain group of cars that were up front were really the ones that were able to move, were the ones that were smart and were taking it. You had to be easy entering the corner and make sure you didn't get it around on you, and that was really the key. The guys in the back, I knew exactly. We were comparing these races to the Indy Lights series in the support races, and it was very, very obvious that that was very similar to that. That you had to be very careful on the tires, and the guys who got it moved up, and the guys who didn't or got caught in the guys who didn't mistakes moved back, and that's how these races go. Twindy being a two-time Indy Lights champion, I mean, would you agree with that? This was a little bit like an Indy Lights car to you?
Yeah, I would definitely agree.
Everybody in here, though, before I even ask you questions, crank your mic up to 100%. Otherwise, you're not going to be heard on the broadcast. Make sure you crank it all the way up. Go ahead, Twindy.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree, and I think that that explains why I felt so comfortable tonight, because it definitely reminded me of an Indy Lights race.
Yeah, I noticed that right off the bat. The little couple of laps I turned in the car, and I thought it was very reminiscent of Indy Lights. It's we were saying on the broadcast, one of the best things that they've done in this game is that when you have a vintage car, it is very realistically vintage. It has vintage hard as a rock tires. It's got a gigantic, monumentally unsafe fuel cell. You got all that to deal with, and that was exactly what you saw here. We were riding on board with Twindy for quite a bit of the broadcast, and we were saying, while you were up there fighting for that top 3 or 4, and we could see you trying to set it up. You guys obviously caught that traffic. I imagine as drivers, you're all the ones who didn't win, like Aram, are sitting there going, damn the traffic. But I thought that they did as good of a job as they could have done to get out of your way, considering some of them were racing for position. I don't think anybody, was real terrible about it. It's just a tough situation when you're coming down to the last lap and there's 4 lapped cars right in front of you. It's just part of racing, and Aram was the one who came out the better for it. I thought from on board, in my opinion, that Twindy was lining them up. I thought that Twindy had a feel for this is when they're going to get side by side with each other, and this is when I can come off the corner, and if I have a groove to take, I can take it here. He actually did it earlier in the race, earlier about maybe 10-15 laps before the finish. He actually did it. He went around, he waited till 2 guys got side by side, and they came off the corner together, and he dipped underneath them and swept around them. I thought that was the move we were going to see at the end, and I thought it's going to depend on when we had Cold on the inside and Aram on the outside, what we were thinking in the booth was we're going to see if Cold can hold it where he's at, then he's in the best position because Aram's up on the wall. He's going to have to check up, and Twindy's going to have to cut to the inside of the two of them and make it perfect to make it work. But if the two of them, get real close side by side in the dirty air coming off the corner, it might be Twindy's race. But that traffic came, and Aram had good track position, and I thought he did a good job of holding them off. But let's go ahead and get to the race winner of the Brickyard Vintage Invitational. Aram Origins, tell us about your race.
Yeah, the whole race was just a big check-up game, You'd catch somebody in the wrong place, you'd have to check up. You can't drive through them. So that played a huge part in track position. It was managing that as well as keeping your draft, As you noticed, the top three were all within, for the last, 20 laps or whatever it was, we're all within a second of each other. And, if somebody would fall back, they could catch you again. It was a big draft game, And coming to the end, the lap cars, they really helped me out, but they screwed some of the other guys. Because I catched a draft, I was hitting 180 down the front stretch on the last lap because Colio was there, right in front of me. And so that played a huge part, having their draft in front to pull us. But overall, it was just it was a fantastic race between the top three.
Yeah, I thought it had it. Go ahead, Johnny.
Very good race from everybody. The only downfall is I think this car might top out at the Daytona International Series, Speedway. So that is going to hamper it becoming a full-fledged series. But I think this is a very capable race car at almost every track, probably except Daytona, which it might top out. But I would definitely consider this for a series. This is an awesome vintage race car.
Yeah, I thought it raced really well. It's definitely a good support series car. Like I said, it as Twindy said himself, it's like an Indy Lights car. It gives you a good indication of whether you can control an Indy car or not. Right there at the end, yeah, Aram, I thought that was exactly right. It's all about where you catch the traffic. Now, if the front car catches the traffic going into the turn, then the cars in the back have the advantage. Like you said, you caught them on the straightaway, got the draft. They caught.
Here, guys. Everybody, make sure you go to your party settings and click allow your voice to be broadcast. Mine probably was not.
Okay.
Make sure you click allow your voice to be shared.
And crank up the volume all the way. Yeah.
Yep. And allow always. Just say allow always to be broadcast. In the party settings, allow your voice to be shared.
Okay. So you get.
So as I was saying, this would be a great car for every racetrack except probably Daytona International, where it could top out. But other than that, it's a very good, capable race car.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think it's like we said, it's a really good support series car. It gives a good feel of who's going to have a feel on the Indy cars. In Aram, you caught the traffic, like you said, at the right time. If you had caught him in the corner, they'd have had the edge, but they caught him in the corner coming up behind you, and that's how you got to play it. I know that they were looking at the same thing and thinking the same thing. If I can get to that point, I can use the lap cars as a pick. But I mean, it is what it is. It's a tough, it's a tough race, but I thought that they did an excellent job moving up. Speaking of runner-up, I know Cold's not going to be talking too much with his. It was amazing to see him out there with his health issue getting out on the track. But another second for Cold. His win is coming. I knew he was in the right position there, and I thought that he was going to get that one. Twindy, on the other hand, like we said, was running, and I think he was setting them up. I may be wrong, but I believe you did the move that you were going to try to use 15 laps earlier.
I did it. I did it twice in that race. When you're talking about there, I was just trying to see if I could do it. And with about 3 to go, I had the opportunity to do it on the backstretch, but I was like,
too early.
If I wait a little bit, it's going to be too early, and I don't think we're going to catch those lapped cars, so I don't think they're going to come into play. And with my luck, I got out of it, and I just kind of, I was going to see if they were going to rub together anything to make it so I could get the run. But yeah, me and Colt went forward in turn 3, and we both scrubbed the wall in the short shoot, and that was pretty much the end of our momentum. So
I got a huge run off of everybody. There's probably 5 cars in front of me with 20 laps to go. I got a huge run out to the outside, and whoever was in the outside lane got pushed up a little bit. They scrubbed the wall. I ran up into them. I don't know if you caught it on camera, Carlin, but my front end was pointing to the sky, and as soon as it smashed down to the ground, it bounced. I held on to it just barely, but there was no more cautions left in the race, and we ran it out from there, and I was over 24 seconds behind when we crossed the finish line. But the way it sucks up on the cars in front of you, like I said, there was 5 cars in front of me. There were 3 wide, 2 behind them. I had a huge run coming. I probably shouldn't have been as greedy as I was. But like I said, the car on the outside slipped up and scrubbed the wall, and I smashed into them, and I went skyward. But all in all, this is a very capable race, and it makes a huge pack race for open-wheel cars, which you don't see very much in this game.
Yeah, I agree with you there. That was I'm a fan of it. I do like the car. You know, definitely these exhibition races, it's great for, especially on a week like this. I really felt that it did a good job of you know, mimicking the little, you know, junior Indy car, like you said, in Indy Lights, where you can figure out who's going to be able to hang on to that. Ultimately, you know, ultimately it was a really good race, and it wound up that you know, there were people farther back, obviously, that got caught up in somebody else's stuff, and that's why they weren't there. But the drivers that were up there were the guys who know how to take this you know, these kind of cars at this kind of track, you know, because we saw it we were on the broadcast as the cars were coming down. You could see who was overdriving it in the corners. You could see very easily who was not, you know, respecting what was underneath them. You know,
and I could feel my car when I was running up on those guys. I could feel my car starting to push if I kept it wide open through the corner. So I was doing a lot of lifting coming through the corner to make my car not push up to the outside groove, but I was still catching them. It had so much draft. These cars make such a big wake. I was still catching them, even lifting through the corner. So I think even if you're a little bit off, you're still right up there with them. I think controllers are very capable in the series, and I'd like to see these cars race again. Maybe make some kind of a support series that doesn't run Daytona if we can't get them to run at Daytona, but I think Texas and a lot of the road courses, these cars would be awesome at.
I think for a little support series like we've been talking about doing, you know, running them.
Suggestions, Carlin.
What's that?
Check your suggested players. Go ahead.
I already did, and I already invited them, so I don't know. Yeah. No, I think that yeah, you could run a couple of races here. This could be a very capable Indy Lights car in one of the little 2-round support series or something like that. I think it would definitely serve that purpose, especially with the, you know, like we said, the tires. One of the best things about the game is running those real vintage tires, and that's the first thing you saw early in the race. You saw cars that were, you know, making their move, and when they would make their move, you could see that what the guy was doing. He was driving it like it was you know, he was driving it like it had brand new Firestones on it. And that's just not what, you know, those are Firestones, but those are Firestones that were, you know, designed by a guy from the 50s probably. So
developed in the 60s, designed in the 50s, run in the late 60s. They're very hard, almost like hockey puck tires. They held up to the aggression, but they didn't have the science up enough where they had to build tires that were super strong just to hold up and make sure they did not blow out. Later
I was just going to say that, yeah.
Later in their development, they developed tires that were softer, that could hold up. But at that point in the development in the late 60s, they had to make tires that were super hard just to hold up to the wear and tear that they were not used to. So a lot of them were super hard tires. But if you go and take this car and put the vintage tires on it, we all ran the track tires. If you put the vintage tires on it, they are even looser and even harder hockey pucks. And the vintage tires are really a handful here. We're lucky we got the track tires. I don't know when the track tires were developed, with the vintage tires that are optional for this car are really a handful. These track tires handle like a dream compared to them.
Yeah, it was probably a good move to go with that. I'll try to invite Hossack again, but I did, so I don't know. Try real quick here. I just don't want to do it. It keeps interrupting the broadcast.
I got you. Let's go and have a talk with Rosta. Rosta, how did you feel like the car handled for you in this race, Rosta?
Before you got on your roof.
Yeah, I was going to say the short bit I ran of it, I was really good. At qualifying, things like that, I was just really starting to get a grip of it, especially behind, running it behind another car, because it's definitely got some different feels to it. But I really like the car. I think it could work for, a lot of different tracks and situations, and definitely run a series again. But yeah, I hear you guys kind of talking about sort of doing that, but yeah, I love that car, so let me know if you do.
Yeah, take her away, Johnny.
Yeah, it was a great race all in all. I think everybody did an awesome job. We had a little bit of rash of yellow fever there in the beginning. I think there was a couple of lesser skilled drivers that were in the event that were causing some of those yellows. I'd love to see this become a series at some point where we could have skilled drivers racing every week, competing for a championship. And then this car, like I said, we probably have to exclude Daytona, maybe run Daytona as a road course in these cars, but all the other ovals, this makes a very good high downforce car with a lot of passing opportunities, and I think this would be good at almost every other track than the 2.5 mile wide open super speedway of Daytona. But for the most part, I think this car created a big wake. There was a lot of opportunity to suck up in the draft. We'll get a little talk from Hossack here. Hossack did a great job of running up there in the top 5. Just again, Hossack, make sure your party settings are set to allow your voice to be shared, and make sure your microphone is cranked up. The level is all the way to the top. And we'll get a little talk with Hossack here. Hossack, what did you think about the way the race played out and the way these cars drive? For sure, I can hear you. Make sure it's all the way up and your voice is shared. You should be good.
So yeah, overall I thought the car worked awesome. I was a little bit fighting loose in entry, but I think everybody knows how that is. Just controlled that a little bit, so backed up my entry a little bit. But other than that, I like the way the car sucked up. I like being able to drive in paths. That was really fun, especially in an open wheel car. That's really cool. But I really like it. I hope it's something that we can continue to run. I hope that somehow a miracle happens, a racing miracle, and they'll work at Daytona, because that would be nice.
Yeah, I'll probably run some kind of an open test session later tonight at Daytona. If any of you want to burn the midnight oil and come try and do some drafting, we're not going to know unless we get a big pack of drafting at Daytona. But we'll definitely try and put something together tonight to try and see if these will work at Daytona. But in the future, we'll try and get something together with this car. This is a great car for a vintage series that runs the old vintage tires. These are, like you say, grooved Firestones, and they work so good. I mean, this is the kind of racing we want to do, vintage style racing with older tires, cars that don't handle perfect but handle very good, especially with all the downforce. We tried to run a couple of the other vintage Indy cars for this event, and we just felt like they did not have enough downforce, and they were so hard to handle through the corners that this car was really a very well balanced car. We had a big pack of drivers. If we do transfer this into a championship event, championship series, we'll have 10, 12 drivers that can run up in a pack, and I'd love to see what happens at that point.
I agree 100% there. the days when we, for those, as we're developing these support series that can run these little short schedules in different types of cars, I think that Indy Lights is obviously one of the main ones. It was always a very good support series, and like we said, like Twindy said earlier, these cars mimic those Indy Lights very well. We were saying it in the broadcast, is that we get on board with somebody, and the guys that aren't doing it right are the ones who, they go into the corner, they turn it real hard, they dive in, and then that push comes, and they scrape the wall, and they wonder what
they don't lift.
And they don't lift.
Feel the push. The drivers that know what they're doing, as soon as they jump in, feel that push. That's what I felt in the race, and I was catching them. I dove in real deep. I tried to get as low as a corner as I can, and as soon as I felt that push, I started to modulate the throttle a little bit, and I was able to lift off enough to not hit the wall, and I was still gaining on the cars in front because they made such a big weight in the draft.
Oh, absolutely, and we've said it in any type of car. We were saying it during the broadcast. In any type of car you run here, the people who know Indianapolis know that it's 2 drag strips with a groove and a half corner at the end. The key to being quick here is not how fast you are entering 1 and 3. It's how fast you are coming out of 2 and 4. And if you get up on that wall or into those marbles on the exits, you're not going to be fast on the straightaways. And if you're not fast on the straightaways, people are going to line you up, pass you before the corner. And that's the main thing here, is I thought these cars showed who got a grip on that the fastest tonight are the ones that, for the most part, were moving up. I mean, maybe their finish didn't reflect it. There were a few guys down near the bottom that just got caught up in somebody else's stuff. But the people who were moving up in the race were the people that were getting that. Not like Hossack was saying, nice and easy in, feather, hammer it coming off, and you would catch people, just like you were saying. And I thought that made it a really good show, and hopefully we will have probably have another one of these here pretty soon. Is there anybody else to hear from before we wrap it up?
I think it mimicked the way the IndyCar is handled to a point very well. Hopefully we'll have all of these people that showed up tonight show up tomorrow night for the Indy 500 qualifying, and again on Friday for the Indy 500. But we probably have our strongest field for Indy 500 races with the way that these cars race and the way that they handle, and the Indy cars having an actual Indy car this season instead of an FGT. I think it's going to be a very good Indy 500 coming up on Friday, and again we'll be broadcast live on YouTube, so hopefully we'll see you all there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think I'm very much looking forward to it. This is the 10th one. I've been in every one of them. Knock on wood, something don't come up that keeps me out of this one. But I do think it's going to be an excellent race. I think you're going to see little separation. Very much kind of how this one went. We'll probably have a handful of cautions early, and then off we'll go. And I think strategy will tell the story. But yeah, tonight at the Brickyard Vintage Invitational, we had Aram Origins taking home the win, Cold coming in second, Twindy rounding out the podium in third. Any final thoughts, anybody?
I just want to say
a good
nice
race.
job driving by Cold. Cold, thank you very much. I had you pinned down at one point there, and you still went below me. It was a racing incident. I'm sorry for trying to pin you down. I shouldn't have. I should have let you go at that point, or you should have lifted. Both of us should have been smarter about that and not caused that yellow, but I think you drove a very good race, and it was just good, hard race and Cold.
Yeah,
thanks
I had a lot of fun. It was a good race.
Thank you for being there.
Anybody else?
Definitely a fun race. Definitely brought back some good memories from GT6. That's a definite.
Yeah, that was an Indy Lights-like race.
It definitely proved that controllers can be competitive, since I believe 2/3 of the podium are controllers. So.
Well, there you go. Exactly. All right, I think that should just about wrap her up from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and for Johnny Benson, Aram, Twindy, Rosta, everybody else who helped us out in the broadcast, and this is Carlin-Hicks. Congratulations again to Aram Origins for the win in the Brickyard Vintage Invitational. We'll see you tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern, for the SCL 22 Indianapolis 500 time trials. 6:30 p.m. we'll be opening the pre-race party to start taking down the queue. If you check the community wall, you can see the rules that are laid out for the qualifying. And we'll catch you guys tomorrow night, and have a good one.